Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? My name is Attorney Charles Zavala from Zavala, Texas Law, your immigration lawyer. We are located here in beautiful Houston, Texas, but we can help you no matter where you are in the USA or even if you are abroad. We're only a phone call away. So the purpose of this video is that we have a YouTube channel, we have social medias where we're always talking about things related to immigration law or criminal law or the services that are the areas of service that we help with. So today's video, because immigration's been in the news recently a lot, we're going to talk about obtaining a green card. What is a green card? How does one obtain it? And who is eligible for it? Okay, so if you watch this video, hopefully we'll give you a little bit of a background, and more specifically for this video, we're going to be talking about how to get a green card through family. So that means through marriage, or if you have children or parents, something along those lines. But most importantly, in this video description, we're going to put a link to this little, I kind of call it like a green card eligibility quiz, where we're going to ask you a few questions to see if you're eligible for a green card, and it'll put you as part of our email communication. And if you're interested, feel free to give us a call. We're more than happy to help you in any way we can. We've been practicing for I think over 10 years. We have 4.9 out of 5 stars on Google. We stand behind the work we do, and we're here to help you to get you where you need to go. We also speak Spanish, so don't worry about the language barrier. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. What is a green card, right? Or you also hear people call it legal permanent resident or lawful permanent resident, but a lot of people call it a green card. And the reason why they call it a green card is because back in the day, it used to be kind of like a little card and it was the color green. But ultimately, it's all the same thing. Having a green card or being a lawful permanent resident allows you to live in the USA unhindered and work in the USA. And in time, you can then become a citizen. But not everyone can get their green card. It's not like you just apply and boom, it happens. You have to be eligible, right? And in this video specifically, we're going to be talking about how can you get your green card for family members. So first, I'm going to talk about through marriage, right? This is a very common way people get their green card, through marriage. You'll hear about this when people say, oh, I'm married. There's a show, 90 Day Fiance. All this stuff is if you are a U.S. citizen and also a resident, but more specifically this video, if you are a U.S. citizen and you marry someone who's a foreigner, they have the right to get a green card through you. Right? And this is called what's called the adjustment of status process, or it's called the consular processing. I'll explain this stuff, don't worry about it. So let's start from the beginning. Let's pretend I, Charles, am a US citizen. I marry my wife who is from, doesn't matter what country, but for this example, let's say she's Italian, right? So I can start the process to get her green card. And what's going to happen is it's going to depend on, well, where is my wife? Is she currently inside the USA or is she abroad, right? Either way, it can happen. But we're going to have to look at how she entered the country. Is she going to need a waiver, etc., etc. But let's just run through some situations. Let's pretend I am a US citizen. My wife is Italian. She's currently in Italy and we are married. Not a problem. We can apply for the green card. Step one, and all these applications when you want to apply for a green card through a family member, is you have to file what's called an I-130 petition. Immigration, or USCIS, United States Customs and Immigration Services, that's a government agency that handles all this stuff. They name all their forms with numbers. So it's like I-130, I-485, I-765. You don't have to worry about that. That's what we're in charge of. But you start this process with the I-130. This is to prove that I am married to my spouse. And they're going to require evidence. They're going to require proof of a marriage, proof that I'm a citizen, proof that it's a bona fide relationship, blah, 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 blah. But once you establish that it is a bona fide marriage, then it's going to move on to the next step, right? Is your partner currently in the USA or are they abroad? If they are abroad in their country, they need to do what's called consular processing. So long story short, we get that I-130 approved, which takes about 12 months, let's say about a year, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer. Once that gets approved, they will send that over to the consulate. In this example I gave you, my wife was Italian. She's not really. But they would send that paperwork over to the Italian consulate, and she would have to go to an appointment there. If everything goes well, it's paperwork, they would then approve her and she'd given a visa, so she's now allowed to enter the USA and she could eventually get her green card, right? So that's one process to do it. All this requires paperwork. It is kind of a pain in the butt, but like I said, we've been doing this for 10 years. We know what we're doing. We can get you across the finish line. But let's give you another example. What if my spouse is currently in the USA, right? And I'll give you two examples. Let's pretend she's in the USA with a valid visa. And when I mean a valid visa, that means she entered the USA legally and her visa is still valid, or she entered the USA legally and has since overstayed her visa, right? Because immigration is only going to look at, did she enter legally? And if she entered legally, then you're in a position where you can apply for your green card and you can do the entire process, the I-130, the green card, the work permit, everything. You can do it while she's here in the USA. This is great for some people because there are a lot of people who have entered with their visa and then overstayed, and they're kind of in a tough position because if they leave, they're going to get in trouble. But if they're here, we can go ahead and apply for their green card. So that is one option. So as part of that little quiz we gave you down at the bottom, we're going to ask you these questions to see, what exactly you do qualify for. But let's pretend she entered legally or overstayed her visa. We can do the entire process from here within the USA. It's taking about, the fastest one we had approved this year was 8 months. But that's not standard. I would tell people, let's say about 12 months, maybe a little more. But during that time, she should receive your work permit and your Social Security before you get your green card, which allows them to be able to start working sooner. So that's the one example I gave you. Let's pretend she entered legally. But what if she didn't enter legally? There's a lot of people who have entered the USA illegally without inspection. It's called EWI, entry without inspection. And then they marry a spouse. So are they kind of out of luck? And the answer is no, they're not. So what we have to do, if somebody entered the country illegally, we need to do, it's a 3-step process. It takes longer, yes, unfortunately, but there is a way at the end of the tunnel, a light at the end of the tunnel. First, we have to do what's called that I-130 petition. It takes about 12 months. Once that gets approved, normally we would then go to the last step, which is apply at the consulate. But remember, if your partner entered the country illegally, we're going to have to ask for what's called a waiver. And the exact waiver is going to be an I-601A waiver. Once again, you don't need to worry about the names, we'll handle that. But this waiver is to forgive what's called unlawful presence, that somebody entered illegally into the USA. Once they approve that and they say, okay, we forgive you for entering the USA illegally, we can now go to the third step, which is scheduling their appointment at their consulate abroad. They will not be able to apply for their green card in the USA if they entered illegally. There's a few exceptions to that with something called 245I, but that's a different type of video. Most of the times, if someone entered illegally, we need to ask for a waiver, and then they have to go to their interview back in their home country. And then a lot of people will say, well, I don't want to go back to my home country. I haven't been there in a lot of years. What if they deny me and I'm stuck out there? That's fair. I understand that. But that's why we ask for that waiver, because the waiver, essentially, we get that approved before you leave. So essentially, you already have a little piece of paper that says, I've been forgiven. So you're not stuck outside the country, right? So those are the ways that you can get a green card if you are married. So kind of a little summary. If your partner is outside the USA, you can do what's called consular processing. If your partner is inside the USA and they entered legally and have overstayed their visa, or they're still here in legal status, then we could do what's called adjustment of status, and we can do all of it here in the USA. Or third option is, if your partner is here in the country and they entered illegally, we need to do the I-130 petition, do the waiver, and then do consular processing. Ultimately, we handle all sorts of these applications all the time. Some take longer than others, but it is what it is. We got to work with the rules we have. So that is how you can get your green card for your spouse. Now I'm going to give you another example. Well, what about your parents, right? We love our parents. So if you are a U.S. citizen, you can also apply for a green card for your parents, okay? And once again, there's two ways we can do this. If your parent is abroad in their country, then we have to do the I-130. Once that gets approved, we schedule them an appointment at their consulate in their home country, just like we would for your spouse if they were there. The second option is, if your parents are in the country legally or entered legally and have overstayed, we can do everything while they stay here. It's almost kind of the same rules as your spouse. If they entered legally and overstayed, we could do everything while they're here. If they're abroad, we have to do it at the consular processing. But then people will say, well, what if my parents entered illegally? Well, this one gets a little bit tricky because you can't ask for a waiver. A child cannot sponsor a waiver for their parents. So that gets a little tricky. So I would say if you're in that situation, give us a call so we can discuss it a little bit more. But ultimately, these are the ways that you can get a green card for your spouse or your parents. Okay, so if you found this video interesting, feel free to share, give us a call. The phone number is there at the bottom of the screen. All appointments are done with me personally via the phone. And we can help you with no matter where you are. We handle all types of cases. I would say 95% of our clients aren't even in the state of Texas, and we have no problem handling that. But even if you're not ready to jump on that call, I would say go to the description of this video, and you're going to see a link there for essentially our green card eligibility quiz. And we're going to ask you a few basic questions to kind of understand your situation, and we'll get you part of our email chain, and you'll start to receive emails, and hopefully over time we can build up your trust and hopefully get you to where you need to. So at the end of the day, I appreciate y'all for watching this video. My name is Charles Zavala here from Zavala Texas Law. If there's anything you need, feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to help in any way we can. Thank you and have a beautiful day. Bye.